Hi, my name is Victoria May, Business Development Manager at Digital Forming. Today I'm going to be demoing a customisable handbag that we've done together with Vaimo, and kindly Osprey have given us a bag to customise. We'll be showing you different customisations available and how we've integrated into the Magento platform. I hope you enjoy the talk. Hi again. So this is a demo site that we've created, Vaimo put together. So this is a Magento e-commerce site, and what you are about to see is one of the bravest things people can do is presenting two people in the room the bag they gave us, what we've done with it. So hopefully it will all go down well. So they were kind enough to give us a bag. It wasn't this actual bag, it was a slightly different one. And what we've done is the team at Digital Forming took that bag, they turned it into a 3D model, and you'll see that now. And we added some customization to it. So unfortunately we don't have the same bag here, but this does very much look like the bag we were given, I can assure you. So if I just scroll down here, we've turned this bag into 3D. So we can now interact in that in full 360. And as you can see, the rendering is very realistic. We've taken the textures of the material and made sure that that's visualized really nicely on the site. And then over here we have an example of how an interface may look, and the type, there it is. So you can see it's exactly the same. Here is, we've taken the bag and then we've chosen to focus on two key areas. This section here and also the tag, and you'll see how that works in a second. We were given a couple of tag options and clasp options. We can go here and we can choose to start adding some monogramming. So here the tag has come up. If I go here, you can see now that that's got a couple of letters on it, and we can go through the alphabet and we can change that. So we're starting to personalize the item. We could change this to be a 3-letter monogram. So you can see now it's got the 3 letters. And again, we can go through that. So in this case, we've gone very much for a kind of personalization of products. And the tag could be just this section here is printed and then stuck onto the rest. So if I start to pass some of these around, you can start to see what would be printed in a resin. This would then be cast afterwards. But these are some of the 3D prints that we have made for tonight to just show everyone the kind of the first step of the process of customizing these pieces. What we can then go on is say, actually, we don't want to customize the tag, we want to customize the buckle. You can then see that the customization has now appeared onto the buckle. We could go through and say, you know what, actually I want to change the buckle, I want to go to the other option, and switch around with those things. And again, everything we do, we can monogram. Another key feature that we added on this example is the ability to take snapshots of what you've done. If I then change this, say I want a different buckle, I'm going to change the colour, and you know what, I want to add the long strap. This is something we added. I'm not sure if the bag has a long strap, but we put it on. Yeah. So we added this, and then we can take another snapshot, and then we carry on customising, and then we're like, you know what, I prefer what I did earlier. We simply click on what we did earlier, and all the customization reverts back to where we were. We can also change perhaps the finish on the metal, go through different options, and same on the tag. As I change through here, those things will update as well. So this is what we created. It took us a few days to put the model into 3D, and then the team worked on creating the customizable pieces. Maurizio can maybe go through in a bit of detail in a second the process of plugging this into a Magento e-commerce system. But the way we work is we have a plugin for Magento. The guys had the documentation. They plugged it in, hopefully nice and easily, and this was the end result. So we're fully integrated onto an e-commerce site. We could go through, add to cart, go through a normal shopping process. And in the case of something like this, like I was saying earlier, referring to hybrid products, the user would check out just as normal, but what Osprey may receive is, yes, we've got an order for this bag, but also they've got these options, and if they are 3D printed, then they go through a different supply chain and everything would kind of come together at the end. But they're kind of details that are all different depending on who you're working with. What we can then go on is say, actually, we don't want to customize the tag, we want to customize the buckle. You can then see that the customization has appeared onto the buckle. We could go through and say, you know what, actually I want to change the buckle, I want to go to the other option, and again, everything would kind of come together at the end. But they're kind of details that are all different depending on who you're working with. Other options with this one in particular, it may be that you wouldn't necessarily 3D print, you might engrave, or if you were 3D printing, you might do a bit more than adding just some text. You might, make some different shapes or kind of give them a bit more freedom, but for the sake of doing a demo, we've kept it nice and simple. And as you can see with the samples, this is how a 3D piece would come through when it's done the first process. So in the case of this kind of printing and a lot of the jewelry that you guys have seen at the front tonight, it's printed in a wax or a resin first. This is all the support structure which is actually required to print in this process. That's then removed, smoothed off, and this is used to create a mold for the final metal that's used to cast. So it's a mixture of a very traditional process of casting jewelry, which has been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, and casting everything. But it's using the kind of advances in 3D printing to be able to really make this piece very unique and to quickly produce something that's unique and specified exactly by the customer. Again, with the tag, same thing again. In this case, it's attached to like a small leather piece, but it may be that tag is completely printed on its own, and it's like a nice charm, different shapes, that kind of thing. Yeah, that is what we created. And I think the 3D visualization as well, of being able to spin around the bag in all angles and take different shots of it. Again, the idea Maurizio was talking about with the sofa company earlier was the idea of sharing that. Likewise, this could be something that could be shared on social media platforms. Which bag shall I get? Email your friend, or I don't know which one I want. You send them this, they get that, and they go, oh, actually, I think you should change the color to this and remove the strap, whatever it may be. They take a snapshot, they send it back to you, and you can pick up where they left off and really start to have a really cool engagement with your friends about how you may want to buy your next Osprey bag.
Amazing. So there is some very interesting things as well that surprised me when I heard about it at first. So yeah, we're talking about casting metals, etc. But you can actually 3D print titanium. I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
So some very tough materials to work with as well. You can now 3D print, which sounds really crazy, but it's true. So ultimately, this software gives you the ability of not only creating this, and then you're probably going to drive us through the actual process of creating the interface, but the process has been really smooth. I mean, it took us overall something like, we did this over 2 weeks period. We didn't work on this full time, obviously. This was something that we worked on when we had some time left. And the beauty of this is that all this interface, all these fields are created through their software. So it's not us on the Vaimo side that generate that, but it's them. And really, it's once you've created a 3D project, you can drag and drop the things that you would like to personalize and set variables. So basically, what happens is that then the user interface is automatically created, basically, and then you can style it up.
I think the other thing with our rendering on the servers that is very important, particularly in the world of 3D, and if you're going to have your 3D assets showing on your online interface, obviously you're not going to 3D print the whole bag, but having these kind of things available, our server-side rendering enables all of this to be entirely secure. So with a lot of 3D viewers, where it's actually based on 3D files, you can actually access those 3D files that are downloaded to your machine, and if you watch a YouTube video on how to do it, you can actually extract that file, and you might be able to get that asset and go get it made yourself, or if it's a piece of jewelry, like you can just get it, send it to another manufacturer and not pay what the retailer wanted you to pay. In the case of how we render our 3D visualizations, it's all done on our servers, which means it's entirely secure. It can't be accessed by anybody else, and like Maurizio said, all the hardcore work is being done on our servers rather than anyone else's. We're going to create very quickly a 3D customizable pendant. This one, in fact. So if you pass these around, you'll see that this pendant is very similar looking, but it has very different or varying different styles and materials. So how is that done? That's done by a designer creating a few variations that they want. The same thing with the bag. They created the 3D buckles in 2 different styles. They created the fonts in 3D. Once we've got those assets, we can bring them into the studio. So what we do is start from a base geometry, and in the case of the pendant, which you'll all see as it goes round, the loop is the first thing that we're going to use. It's the base geometry. The loop is the only thing that remains constant throughout this whole experience. Once we've brought in our base file, we're then going to start adding in the various different designs. So in the case of the pendant, there are 2 layers, the first layer and the second layer, and we've got geometries for each. Now, I've designed this, I've created the 3D models, they're STL files, and they're coming into here. We have a tool that allows me to do that, so I'm just going to bring this out and I'm going to import my 3 base files. And soon you'll start to be able to recognize these as what you've got in your hand or what you've had in your hand in the past couple minutes. So you can see we can switch between the 2, 3 things here. Likewise with the buckle, we were switching between, it's the same tool. We're then going to do the same again. And we're going to bring in the next layer of the design, which as you can see is the same thing, slightly shrunk down and flipped around. And now I've added that. So then we're going to add an empty, which just means the options, should the customer not want to have that final bit, they don't have to. And now you can kind of see we're bringing in different elements and we're building this thing within this very non-consumer facing interface. This is very much what the designer or what we do on the behalf of the brand. From here, we have a few different tools, and we're going to add the ability for the consumer to do a bit of design here by just rotating this section so they can kind of feel like they have an interaction with the product a bit more. And you can see on every slider we have these values at the end, and they're the parameters. So this is like the key thing with customization, and the key thing that digital forming developed within the software is that you can parameterize everything. So you can say, we don't want them to be able to do that, we do want them to be able to do this, but only to this extent. So here you can see that was sliding completely all around everywhere. If I change the values here to a lot less, so say 0 to 10, that's now very much limited. And that could be for manufacturability, aesthetics, branding, whatever. In this case, we don't need to be so limiting, so I'm going to bring that back up. And now that's moving nice and freely. So the next thing, the kind of second main part of the tool, so there's obviously the parameterizing of parts, and then there's building the interface. So that can be hard, you know, you don't want to code and script, and if I'm a designer, I don't know how to do that, I just want to make a cool product. What we can do is build the interface within this software, super easily. So what I do is go back onto my first layer. If you imagine everything inside the middle, the white box, is what the customer would see if we were to upload this, go through the Magento API with no interaction. They'd be able to move it around, but there's nothing there. It doesn't make sense yet, does it? What we do is grab this, drag it across, and drop. And you can see it automatically creates some icons. Now, I'm not saying they're the icons that you would want to show on the interface, but there's the functionality, all done. All we have to do is skin over the top. We do the same thing again with that one. And now you can kind of start to get a feel for how the customer will interact, the different options that they're going to be able to create. And then we did a rotation, again, drag that, drop that there, and now we've created a slider. And none of those little renderings in the corner there were preloaded. That's just the software reads what the 3D file looks like and it populates a little image. And like I say, that isn't necessarily what you would want on the screen, but now everything's done, I don't have to worry. The next thing we can do, as we were saying, is link through to our various 3D printing partners. So here is just a small list of companies that we're linked to. If I go on to iMaterialize, they're based in Belgium. They do pretty much every single material you see here and some more. And I know that they do a really great silver and a gold-plated brass, which is the ones you've just seen. That's what they're made of, and that's the company they were made by. And their library of materials is all within our software. It's already connected. So I just go, I want high gloss silver. I'm going to smooth out the rendering. And I want gold-plated brass. I drag that over, and there we go. And we could have more options, we could add whatever we want, but the designer obviously has to think about the constraints for the process they're using in the manufacturing of that thing, and whether they're kind of sticking by the rules of 3D printing. But again, that's something that we can consult on as kind of experts in 3D. At this point, we could also add some text. So we have a text tool, comes in like this. We then select a font, so we've already created one. We bring it in. Obviously, any font can be used as long as you have a license for it. We're then going to say that we only want them to be able to type one character. So again, we're adding a parameter there. We only want them to be able to type in capitals, so we're going to untick all of this. And we want it to be aligned within that red box, that's called our placeholder, and we want the text to be aligned in the center of that placeholder. And now, no matter what letter I type, because I've made this a few times, we know that this works perfectly. From there, we then add the link again for the text. We then upload this to the digital forming platform, and that's where this turns from a kind of desktop application up onto an online interface. I won't go on to that because to upload it will just waste time. But basically from here, we upload onto our platform and then we link through to Marketplace. So for the demo for the handbag, we created like a fake Osprey marketplace within our system. And we said, right, this bag needs to show on this marketplace. We then had Mauricio's team create the site. Some API keys, I won't get too technical, but they're switched around, and that basically says, right, this marketplace is linked to this Magento site. You go on Magento and you hit synchronize. They've already created the product so that it's there. We populate that page with our 3D model, and we skin that interface to match whatever it may be that the brand wants. So in the case of the handbag, it obviously looks like this. We've gone for quite a clean, plain interface. We can do any type of interface. It really just depends. You might not want drop downs, you might want icons, you might want carousels, you might not want to have the letters typed on drop downs, you might want to just type them out in a sentence if you want to add more text. But anything that you want basically can be achieved by our system and creating unique interfaces. And that, in a nutshell, is how we go from 3D up onto the cloud, integrate into Magento. Bob's your uncle. Done.